BSing. Anyway, so the Duke in the play is the husband of Goneril, which is a real hag, and is cheating around and trying to destroy her parental figure. I guess you'd say in this case, not your mother. And so anyway, I was just backstage a lot and not doing much, and I would come home, head on my way home, go by my mom's house, check in on her, maybe grab a snack, and then head on out. Well, as my mom is wont to do, one night I came home, and she would always read the obituaries. I guess, you know, a lot of moms do that, I guess. And the old infamous words that you didn't ever want to hear from Mom was, do you remember so-and-so? Yeah, they died. Well, on this particular night, I came home. We were getting ready for the final run of the play. And I came home and she said, do you remember this person? We'll call him DC. He was a kid that went to elementary school with me. And, of course, I said, yeah. And she said, well, you know, he died. And in this case, it wasn't the, oh, no, it was... I actually felt a bit of a grin forming on my face, a little satisfaction being developed there. And I actually quoted the line that Albany says when he finds out Goneril died in the play, which is, this judgment of the heavens fills us not with sorrow. And Mom kind of looked at me and was like, well, I wouldn't, he died in, his car rolled off the road into a creek, and the catalytic converter caused the grass to catch on fire. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And I kind of looked at her and go, well, in this case, it is my worst enemy. Well, he'd say, well, how does that form? Well, flash back a few years back from that, back to when I was sad and lonely 11 or 12-year-old. I was actually a very happy kid up until my dad got transferred in the Air Force back to the city of Abilene, Texas, which I'm living in as the story takes place. But I had gone to a nice little Our Lady of Fatima over in Mississippi, and things had been going great for me there. And then we moved to Abilene, and all of a sudden I was out of place. I didn't fit in with anybody all of a sudden. We had uniforms at Our Lady of Fatima, and then all of a sudden I was thrown into the horror that is public school system. And all of a sudden you had to meet certain fashion expectations, which I never understood, because, well, why wasn't my Star Wars shirt perfectly okay to wear to school? Well, what was wrong with it? Why did I have to be mocked about that? And then there was other aspects of life that you just don't get used to when you're kind of secluded like that, which was Abilene did not understand Catholics very well. It was a virulently anti-Catholic area. And all of a sudden, your religion is under fire every day. Well, why is my religion under fire? Don't we believe in the same God? Don't we believe in Jesus? What's going on here? And all of a sudden, you know, I was being called a Pope worshiper, What does that mean? Statue worshiper? How can you worship a statue? It falls over, it breaks. That just doesn't make sense. And all these others, harmful slams and slanders. And, you know, everything gets accumulated, too, when you're that age. You know, your hair isn't right. You don't do things right. Apparently, I was an FAG because I didn't act a certain way. And it was every day a constant beating. But it was made all the worse because shortly after we moved to Abilene, my brother, who was my hero, he was the coolest guy you ever met. Just a great guy. Tom. And apparently didn't know what a shotgun, how a shotgun should be properly used, and there was a fire and a gunshot, and that was the end of my brother, my 16-year-old brother, the coolest guy, the guy who took me to see Star Wars for the first time. You know, Han Solo doesn't die, you know, and so then I had to deal with that, the sorrow and the aftermath of the loss of a beloved brother, you know, the dealing with the fact that life doesn't go on. It just can be snuffed out pretty much without him. And then you got a-holes in school that you can't even get to your locker. And there's not some jerkwad trying to push you around or give you grief about what your stupid shirt is. What the hell is that about, you know? There's bigger considerations in life than a dumbass shirt, and to hear somebody, you know, all you want to do is just get to your desk, you know, but you can't do that because, no, I got to have some fun and see if I can make my friends laugh by, you know, humiliating another human being. and calling them names, and you know, because that's just prime life. And that was Mr. DC. Mr. DC, my mom later would describe him as a poor little rich kid. But anyway, he was that issue. He had his troubles, and which I'll describe later. But he would make my life a living hell at school. And one day, I was just trying to get out on my bike. That's all I wanted to do. Me and my friend James were just trying to get out on our bikes and get home. And DC and his little gang showed up, and they were not going to let us get to the bike because that would be just too easy. And so they were pushing us. They knocked James over to the ground, and you know, I started to punch me a little bit, but I got James up, and we scrambled more towards our bikes. And you don't like your bike, so you had to get past them. So we got through them, and we started riding off, and I'll never forget this. We were just trying to get out. It was a dusty, windy day like today, and I was trying to get out of there from Austin Elementary, and all of a sudden he said, as I left, he goes, "You are such a loser. You are so terrible person. Such a loser. That's why your brother killed himself, so he didn't have to be with you." You know, have you ever just had so much rage in you, just an anger that's so I wanted him dead. I wanted him and his little buddies just gone. I wanted their existence to be stopped. At that point, there was nothing more that I wanted out of life than to see the end of their little gang. And, you know, just to, as I said to James, I want to put them out of my misery. I wanted them gone. I remember we rode over, there's a little creek on the way home called Cat Claw Creek. Now, if you know anything about West Texas, you know there's no such thing as water in those creeks unless there's a severe thunderstorm. So we rode our bikes down into that creek, and there was a little concrete thing like this. I just drew a little picture of his face down on the ground, and then me and James took turns hitting it with our bike chains, and just, you know, screaming at it and just terrorizing that thing. But as I pounded that, I really wished it was his face. I wanted it to be his face. I wanted him bad, so dead, so bad. I remember I drove home to school after we had finally left there. I guess we worked some anger off, but I hadn't worked enough of it off. I went home, and I walked into that house, and I was going to plot the way. I was going to figure out how to do this. And you know, the first thought and the easiest thought, I remember this so clearly at the time, was, why not just get a gun? You just have to act the fire alarm at school while they're all in there. Wait till they start coming out, and you can just pock shot them while they come out. That would have been so simple and so easy. And you know, the scary thing is that's what the Jonesboro kids did later on in life. But as I thought about it, there's some major flaws in this theory. A, I had no access to a gun. B, I didn't know how to fire a gun. C, I couldn't hit if I could fire, I don't know how I'd shoot him. So then I started moving, and remember, I am like 11 or 12 at the time, so I started to come up with Plan B, which was maybe I could get a hold of some chemicals, like what you clean your house with, you know, some kind of detergent, something, some cleaner, hardcore cleaner, and maybe I could inject into their milk or give them some kind of milk, or maybe try to poison them in some way, because poison seemed fairly easy an idea, very conceptually okay. But I remember I was sitting there plotting this horrible act of vengeance, and I happened to see my mom always did these things. She hung, you know, you always had a crucifix in your house, and you always had a picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And I remember looking up at the Sacred Heart and looking at the face and looking at his pierced heart there. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, yeah, okay, that's great, fine. So I'm supposed to forgive them, right? I'm supposed to forgive these guys. Why? Why? You tell me why. And it began a fairly lengthy debate, not with the pitcher, because, you know, that's stupid, but with Jesus himself. And I was like, why? Why should I, you know, not do this? Why should I not kill these kids and get rid of them? Why? You know, why? Just tell me why. And I remember just thinking, you know, it came to my head. It just, you know, you can't. Well, why not? Because they're people too. They're human beings too, you know. And but why? Why should they continue on? Why should they exist when my brother, who was the greatest person I knew, it was dead? Why should I allow these monsters, and it was like every time I tried to say monster, every time kids, other kids, it just kept coming into my head, pounding and pounding, and I was like, why? Why should I? And as I debated through it, as I tried to, as angry as I was, I'm going to say it, Jesus just kept telling me, you can't. No, sorry, can't do it. And I was angry and mad, and I was, but why not? You love them too? Why? Why would you love them? Why? I forget, and the thought, crucified me. Why? And it was like, yeah, but you're God. I'm just a poor little sad kid. Why? But and it just, the argument went on, and finally I came out of it, and I put it behind me, and there, it was interesting because right after this whole incident with D.C. passing away, the Columbine incident happened, and I remember thinking, there, but literally for the grace of God go I. And because when you're being abused like that, when you're being beat up every day at school, when you're being mocked, when you're being belittled, when you're being told that you're not like the other kids, when you're told that you're FAG or this or that or other things, you get beat down so bad, and you just don't want to deal with that anymore. You want it to end. You just want it gone somehow. Just make the misery stop. I remember watching the film with Farrah Fawcett, The Burning Bed, and knowing exactly where she was coming from. But I remember also being envious because there was programs for abused women. They could escape their situation. You got sent to school every day, no matter what. And I was remembering, wouldn't homeschool be such a great deal? They didn't have homeschool as much back then, so. But I was like, at least you could avoid, the people who were giving you such troubles. But anyway, so I was talked down off the ledge and went back to school the next day, and things eventually got better. But again, that's a story for another time. But anyway, so that night in that kitchen, I was staying there, and my mom was saying, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, he was my brother. I still hated him, and it felt good. It's true, and I felt good that he had burned alive in a vehicle, and that was actually quite sad to me too, that I felt that way. So I decided at that moment that I was going to go to the funeral. I was going to rearrange work schedules, and I was going to make it out to that funeral because I wanted to be there. So I remember I drove out to the small little community that it was, it was a day like today, nice. And it was kind of cloudy in the morning, but it was a nice day, kind of breezy, warm. And I made it out to the church. It was one of those bigger Baptist churches that you see around West Texas. And I remember I pulled up, and there was lots and lots of cars there. I'd worn all black and wore my trench coat because trench coats are cool. They are. Agent Cooper wore a trench coat. As Highlander showed, you could hide a broadsword underneath those things. They're just, you look like you gone to a funeral right with a trench coat on. Anyway, so I drove out there. I walked up, and my plan was to just kind of take a back seat and get in there and kind of coastally sit in there. But as it turns out, like the whole freaking town showed up, and that thing was packed, jammed packed with people. So I was trying to think, well, maybe I should go ahead and go on away, but I went on in, and the first thing I was just an act of God, I have to say. But the first thing I was confronted by was a picture that they put in the back, as they often do at funerals. It was of him as he was back when I knew him, back in elementary school. So the first image I walk into in there is that face of that child that had tormented me all those years back, that had caused my life to be a living hell, that had actually brought me to the point of wanting to kill somebody. And there it was. And this was his funeral. And so it was like, oh. So I was actually thinking once more about escaping, but at this point I was kind of committed, and the ushers grabbed me and kind of were moving me into a seat, which I was still hoping that I would be, put to the back. There was a lot of people. It would be easier to go to the back. But instead, because of the sitting arrangements and because there were so many people, I got moved all the way up to to the very front of the church, sitting just maybe from like here to that table over there to the casket. And I'm over there on the side, up almost by the, I guess you don't call it the altar in a Baptist church, but, you know, the front of the church. Anyway, so there I am, sitting there where, you know, full-size people. I can see he had apparently married in the meantime, beautiful wife, and two lovely young children sitting there. No, actually the children were not there, as I recall. It was just the wife. The children were too young, so I guess they didn't bring them. But so there I was, sitting, you know, just feet away, and they gave me the little prayer introduction booklet, whatever. And I remember seeing on it the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, the famous psalm. And I got to the point, before my enemies he lays me a bed, and I was like, oh, there he is, my enemy, right before me, laid to rest. And you know, it was sick, to be honest with you, in a lot of ways, because there was so much vileness, so much anger that he had wrought upon my soul. And there I was, you know, staring at. And to a degree, I was gloating. I was. I'll admit it. I am ashamed that it happened, but you know, it was there. I was kind of smugly satisfied. It was a closed casket, of course.